Currency Investing 101. It is such a pleasure to be with you guys today and to be teaching you about this wonderful technology that I learned about some time ago. I've been in the space for a while, and today I think we'll start off with a brief introduction of who I am and how I am in the space, and I hope you guys start understanding a little bit more once this class is finished. In this class, what we'll do is we'll give you a brief introduction to Bitcoin. We'll also discuss why Bitcoin, why people are so excited about it. We'll also learn how to discuss alt currencies, altcoins they call them, which are basically derivatives of Bitcoin in a lot of ways. And then we'll start talking about how to get more into it, how to convert your fiat currency or your US dollars into Bitcoin by using certain cryptocurrency exchanges. We'll also talk about best practices when protecting and keeping your Bitcoin. And then we'll start getting into how to research cryptocurrency that are worth investing in, and then give a brief overview of tools that you can use to kind of help you. So hopefully throughout this course, if you don't know anything about cryptocurrencies, hopefully we can help you understand them more. Now, I just want to start off with this disclaimer. You'll hear me say it a lot. I don't ever tell anyone to invest their money directly into cryptocurrencies. What I say is that if you put money into cryptocurrencies, you are completely speculating. And I just want to make sure I give that disclaimer. There are a lot of people on the internet and a lot of different ads and advertisements that you see come out, and they make it seem like it's a sure bet. Most of these cryptocurrencies are still in their infancy. And some of them have been around for a while, like Bitcoin, but they are still experiments and they're software, and so things can happen with software. So what I always say is just make sure that you put the money in that you're willing to lose. If you can lose all 100% of whatever you're putting in and it not affect your net worth and it not affect your livelihood, then I think that would probably be okay, and to be able to dibble and dabble a little bit into the cryptocurrency space. But if you're putting your diaper money, or you putting your wife's shoe money, or your rent or your mortgage into cryptocurrency, I don't advise that. Just from the standpoint of these things are extremely volatile, and you never know which way they're going to go. I've been in this space for a long time, and I've seen a lot of rises and a lot of falls. The good thing is the trend has pretty much, even with the falls, has gone upward, but I'm not saying that'll last forever. So just know before we even get into this class that take everything I say just as an introduction. I'm not giving you investment advice. You have to know within yourself what you're willing to invest into these volatile assets, but they're extremely exciting. People have gained a lot of wealth investing in these assets early on, and this class is going to teach you guys how to do that. Hey, welcome back. First of all, let's get into what Bitcoin is. So Bitcoin is a decentralized ledger that allows people to send assets digitally peer-to-peer across the internet. Now, how it works, there's a lot of different research papers that were put into how this currency had come together, but it really came from one inventor named Satoshi Nakamoto. Some people don't know who he is. Some people believe he is a lot of people. They think it's a group of people that did this. But essentially, Satoshi Nakamoto invented Bitcoin around October of 2008, during the economic crisis, during when we were dealing with the economic crisis. And it was an answer to that. I think Satoshi and a few other guys like Hal Finney and some other cypherpunks came up with this solution because they were tired of the banks. They were tired of allowing the banks to control our money supply. And they wanted to figure out a way that they could create a currency that was censorship resistant and allowed you to do it peer to peer. So when you talk about censorship resistance, what you're talking about is a coin that no one can tell you where to send it, and no one can stop you from sending it. So if I want to send money to China, I can send money to China. I can send Bitcoin to China. Bitcoin basically is the idea of this decentralized ledger. So when you talk about a ledger, most people think about accountants. And accountants keep all of their records in a ledger. And a lot of times those ledgers are what we call centralized. And so a centralized ledger would basically mean that there is one place that the ledger exists, and everyone goes to that ledger to check to see what balances are in every single one of the accounts. But when you're talking about Bitcoin, Bitcoin is what we call a decentralized ledger. So in a decentralized ledger, what happens is that everyone who is participating within the network of Bitcoin has a copy of the ledger. So if I send money to Tim, then everyone in the entire network will know that I sent money to Tim. And they will record it, their computers will record it in their ledger. Now, that's a very interesting concept when you think about it, because now all of a sudden, you don't have one single point of failure. You don't have to worry about one person's ledger being the end all and be all for the transaction. Now, all the transactions can be across many different ledgers. And that in and of itself is huge for the world, right? Because now you don't have to trust a third party to give you information about what your account has or the account that you're receiving funds from. So that's a really interesting concept. And what it did, and the actual problem that Bitcoin solved, is called the Byzantine general problem. The Byzantine general problem is basically saying when you have we have generals of like minds on both sides, how do you get the message over to the other side to say let's attack without it getting intercepted and allowing it to get to where it needs to go, and all of the generals knowing exactly what the right message was without it getting attacked, without it getting intercepted, or without it becoming decrypted, or even actually just messed up, like changed, right? So they solved this problem through a consensus method, right? So what they did was they established a consensus method that said the chain that has the most operating or hashing power, associated with it, that chain is the longest chain, and that chain is the one that is truth to everyone. And they do this in a lot of different ways, and I'm not going to really get into the technicalities because I know this is more about investing. But I really do think that you should look up exactly how Bitcoin works from a technical standpoint. I mean, even if
What's up, family? How you like that video? That joint was hot, wasn't it? Yeah, that's my young right there, CGQ. He definitely up and coming artist from Philadelphia. Super dope talent. He signed the Born Make Bosses publishing, and he doing a little co-pub deal with Coinda Publishing. So let me get right to it real quick. Publishing is what the world of hip-hop is made off of. And crypto is the new money, like I said before. Remember do you remember back like 5-6 years, or maybe let's say like 10 or 15 years ago, when it wasn't no internet? Can y'all remember that, when it wasn't no internet? Just stop and think real quick. No internet. And then all of a sudden, some geniuses at the Department of Defense came out with this technology called the internet. Boom. Disrupted everything, revolutionized the whole game. That's what cryptocurrency and the blockchain is. The first technology that came out on the blockchain was the Bitcoin. The Bitcoin is a crazy concept of sending value to anybody in the world with an internet connection. I mean, it's super dope. So dig, here's a little video I'm about to send you to check out. It's coming up next, that's going to teach you a little bit about, cryptocurrency and Bitcoin real quick. It might be a little bit, over the top or a little technical, but stick around after that video because I'm going to break it down to you in layman terms, you know what I mean? And then I'm going to give you some more hip-hop, but I want to give you a little bit more knowledge since you're sticking around with us, you know what I mean? And tell you, how, Coinda and Born Make Boss is going to revolutionize the game for our culture. Because we the dopest out here, man. Everybody want to be like us. They want to rap like us. They want to sing like us. They want to dance like us. You know what I mean? So let's capitalize on our talents. And this new wave, this new money, this crypto is the way. And Coinda created our own crypto. Our own money, family. It's real talk. So stick around, check out this video, and I'm going to see you on the next one after this one. Peace.
Say there's a coin that's currently worth hundreds of US dollars, but it's not made of gold or platinum or any precious metal. In fact, it's not the kind of coin you can hold in your hand or stick in a piggy bank. It's a digital currency, which means it only exists electronically. I'm talking about Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't work like most money. It isn't attached to a state or government, so it doesn't have a central issuing authority or regulatory body. Basically, that means there's no organization deciding when to make more Bitcoins, figuring out how many to produce, keeping track of where they are, or investigating fraud. So how does Bitcoin work as a currency? Or have any value at all? Well, Bitcoin wouldn't exist without a whole network of people and a little thing called cryptography. In fact, it's sometimes described as the world's first cryptocurrency, and here's how it works. Bitcoin is a fully digital currency, and you can exchange Bitcoins between computers in a worldwide peer-to-peer network. The whole point of most peer-to-peer networks is sharing stuff, like letting people make copies of super legal music or movies to download. If Bitcoin is a digital currency, what's stopping you from making a bunch of counterfeit copies and becoming fabulously wealthy? Well, unlike an MP3 or a video file, a Bitcoin isn't a string of data that can be duplicated. A Bitcoin is actually an entry on a huge global ledger called the blockchain, for reasons we'll get to in a minute. The blockchain records every Bitcoin transaction that has ever happened, and as of late 2016, the complete ledger is about 107 gigabytes of data. So when you send someone Bitcoins, it's not like you're sending them a bunch of files. Instead, you're basically writing the exchange down on that big ledger, something like Michael sends Hank 5 Bitcoins. Now, maybe you're thinking, but wait, you said that Bitcoin doesn't have a central authority to keep track of everything. Even though the blockchain is a central record, there's no official group of people who update the ledger and keep track of everybody's money like a bank does. It's decentralized. In fact, anybody can volunteer to keep the blockchain up to date with all the new transactions, and a ton of people do. It all works because there are lots of people keeping track of the same thing to make sure all transactions are accurate. Like, imagine you're playing a game of poker with some pals, but none of you have poker chips and you left your cash at home. There's no money on the table, so a few of you get out some notebooks and start writing down who bets how much, who wins, and who loses. You don't completely trust anyone else, so everyone keeps their ledgers separately. At the end of every hand, you all compare what you've written down. That way, if someone makes a mistake, or tries to cheat and snag some extra money for themselves, that discrepancy is caught. After a couple of hands, you might fill up a page of your notebook with notes about the money movement. You can think of each page as a block of transactions. Eventually, your notebook will have pages and pages of information, a chain of those blocks. Hence, blockchain. Now, if thousands of people are separately maintaining the Bitcoin blockchain, how are all the ledgers kept in sync? To stick with our poker analogy, think of the entire Bitcoin peer-to-peer network as a really huge poker table with millions of people. Some are just exchanging money, but lots of volunteers are keeping ledgers. So when you want to send or receive money, you have to announce it to everyone at the table, so the people keeping track can update their ledgers. So for every transaction, you're announcing a couple of things to the Bitcoin network: your account number, the account number of the person you're sending Bitcoins to, and how many Bitcoins you want to send. And all of the users who are keeping copies of the blockchain will add your transaction to the current block. Having a bunch of people keep track of transactions seems like a pretty good security measure. But if all it takes to send Bitcoins is a couple of account numbers, that seems like it might be a security problem. It's a huge problem with regular money. Just think of all the ways criminals try to steal other people's credit card information. And with Bitcoin, there's no central bank to notice anything weird going on to shut down fraud, like if it looked like suddenly you spent your entire life savings on beef jerky. So what's stopping Hank from pretending he's me and just sending himself all of my Bitcoins? Bitcoins are kept pretty safe thanks to cryptography, which is why it's considered a cryptocurrency. Specifically, Bitcoin stays secure because of keys, which are basically chunks of information that can be used to make mathematical guarantees about messages, like, hey, this is really from me. When you create an account on the Bitcoin network, which you might have heard called a wallet, that account is linked to two unique keys: a private key and a public key. In this case, the private key can take some data and basically mark it, also known as signing it, so that other people can verify those signatures later if they want. So let's say I want to send a message to the network that says, Michael sends 3 Bitcoins to Olivia. I sign that message using my private key, which only I have access to and nobody else can replicate. Then I send that signed message out to the Bitcoin network, and everyone can use my public key to make sure my signature checks out. That way, everyone keeping track of all the Bitcoin trading knows to add my transaction to their copy of the blockchain. In other words, if the public key works, that's proof that the message was signed by my private key and is something I wanted to send. Unlike a handwritten signature or a credit card number, this proof of identity isn't something that can be faked by a scam artist. The who part of each transaction is obviously important to make sure the right people are swapping Bitcoins, but the when matters as well. If you had $1,000 in your bank account, for example, and tried to buy two things for $1,000 each, the bank would honor the first purchase and deny the second one. If the bank didn't do that, you'd be able to spend the same money multiple times, which might sound awesome, but it's also terrible. A financial system can't work like that because no one would get paid. So if I only have enough money to pay Olivia or Hank, but I try to pay them both, there's a check built into the Bitcoin system. Both the Bitcoin network and your wallet automatically check your previous transactions to make sure you have enough Bitcoins to send in the first place. But there's another problem that might happen with timing. Because lots of people are keeping copies of the blockchain all over the world, network delays means that you won't always receive the transaction requests in the same order. So now you've got a bunch of people with a bunch of slightly different blocks to pick from, but none of them are necessarily wrong. Okay, Bitcoin, how do you solve that problem? It turns out it's by actually solving problems. Math problems. To add a block of transactions to the chain, each person maintaining a ledger has to solve a special kind of math problem created by a cryptographic hash function. A hash function is an algorithm that takes an input of any size and turns it into an output with a fixed size. For example, let's say you had this string of numbers as your input, and our example hash function says to add all of the numbers together. So in this case, the output would be 10. What makes hash functions really good for cryptography is that when you're given an input, it's really easy to find the output, but it's really hard to take an output and figure out the original input. Even in this super simple example, there are lots of strings of numbers that add up to 10. The only way to figure out that the input was 1, 2, 3, 4 is to just guess until you get it right. Now the hash function that Bitcoin uses is called SHA-256, which stands for Secure Hash Algorithm 256-bit, and it was originally developed by the United States National Security Agency. Computers that were specifically designed to solve SHA-256 hash problems take, on average, about 10 minutes to guess the solution to each one.